Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, depending on where you are and what time you are watching this. My name is Winston, and this is another episode of the Revenue Alignment Podcast. I am your host, and today we have a very special guest with us, Miss Abby Obomighie. I'm hoping I'm pronouncing your name
Quite close.
correctly. Abby, I'm so excited, so thrilled that you decided to come on and share your insights and wisdom with us on the podcast. How are you doing?
So far, so good. It's sunny in England today, so I'm enjoying the heat. So yeah, and it's Friday, so yeah.
Oh yeah, that's very good.
Yeah,
In terms of the weekend.
yeah.
So, guys, just to help you understand the caliber of person that we have on the podcast with us today. So, Abby has actually held positions as the senior finance business analyst at Johnson and Johnson and United Health Group. She's also been group financial planning and analyst director, head of financial planning and analyst at Hitachi Europe, head of finance. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you are the Europe finance director for projects at Honeywell. Is that correct?
Yes, Honeywell Europe. Yes.
So your career has pretty much spanned the entire financial sector, would you say?
Sector, industry, and countries.
Which countries have you like worked in?
Nigeria for once. So
Of
started off in
course.
Nigeria. Um, in terms of UK, I've managed different countries. I've had to set up different shared centers in Europe. Because I've done finance transformation role is trying to move things to shared service or low cost countries, so either Poland or India. And yeah, briefly when United Health Group was merging, we were to set up the Canadian office as well. So yeah, those are the countries, but mostly the UK. And who knows, maybe another country in a few years. So I'm open.
Well, share with us where did that all start though, in terms of you starting a career in finance to where you are today. Share with us that story, how that came about.
I think I would say from home because I'm a middle child, and for middle child in Africa, yeah, we had the doctors, we had the engineers, we had all the names. So for me, I could choose whatever I wanted to be. I didn't have the pressures of being a firstborn and having to carry on the family name or trying to prove a point. I think it has already been proved. So I I chose finance because I wanted to be a pharmacist. And then I went into the sciences and I failed chemistry woefully. So, but I was good with all the other elements. I loved economics, I loved geography, and I loved what it is. So I decided to find out what else I could do with that. So I think for me, my journey grew. Accounting was the next best thing because it was the most popular other non-science related STEM functions in Nigeria at that time when we were growing up. So accounting was the best next thing that we could see a profession in. But what accounting is and what accounting for me is today is very different. So that's the way I fell into accounting. I didn't start off wanting to become an accountant. I wanted to be a pharmacist, but thank God I failed chemistry. So so that's where I am today. So that's how I got into accounting. But I tend to tell people I'm not an accountant. I don't like my debits and credits. I leave it to my controllers to do. I love the FP&A side of it. And I fell into that after coming into the UK. My first FP&A stint was with the University of College of London, where we're trying to implement the full economic costing. So what that was all about was trying to come up with how to cost research work so that it has a longevity and we can actually pay it forward to our next generation. So coming up with something from scratch, and that's how I kind of got into FP&A. So coming up with the systems, looking at reports, talking to people that were much older than me in terms of collecting ideas, analyzing it, and coming up with both the quantitative and qualitative analysis. And it grew from there. So it taught me to do the F side of finance, which is financial planning, the analysis, and then look at the budgeting side of it, and then do the analytics. So over the years, I've tended to go into, I saw that I enjoyed that. I tried that. I like the business partnering. I like talking to people. I like talking. And and then adding to what I have as a profession. So putting on my accounting hat and actually saying this is why it must, and then looking into the future is what excites me. It's numbers have closed, numbers have closed. What can I do with it? How can I drive those business information? And yeah, that's how I got into accounting. So I kind of fell into FP&A and fell into accounting as well. So yeah.
That's interesting. Have you throughout your career so far, have you done much work with marketers? Because you mentioned something about budget, which I'm going to get into later on. But have you have much experience working with marketers?
So when you say marketers, in what industry and in what factor are you talking about marketers? Are you talking salespeople or
No, not
what?
sales, marketers. Because one of the things is that with marketers, we have to, we get budget and we have to do things like build brand. We have to create demand for whatever product it is that the company sells. And then, you probably might have the sales force that goes out and sells it. So, like, for example, well, let me just get right into this particular question since it came up. In terms of like a marketing campaign to promote the brand, do something, has there ever been a time when a marketing person or lead or team has actually come to you as a finance person to say, hey, we want budget for this,
Yeah.
but you actually turned it down because you didn't see it as something feasible? And also, why did you turn it down if that was the case?
Okay. I think from my experience in Johnson and Johnson, one of the things I did was be a business partner for the product launch group, understanding what that means and the timing of it. I think for a budget, most people look at it in the now, but you have to consider not just why you're budgeting now, but also how it's going to span over 12 months. Remember, you're starting 12, sometimes 6 months before the budget starts, and you're going to implement it 12 months or another 6 months after you've actually put pen to paper. So it's your ability to look at beyond your pain points now. So sometimes it's a nice to have because you feel all the pain points now and not look at it all through the cycle. Once upon a time, we had a brand that we wanted to bring into the picture. And what they wanted to do was bring in all the bells and whistles because we had just done one where I think the team, I think it was one of the X Factor winners that dances had just done one of our campaigns. So they wanted something, another big one in 12 months. And I have to say, no. The reason why is because we need to see the benefit of the first one, prove that it works, and then if it's a success, roll it out again and build on that. The fact that it had all the bells and whistles and had everything might not be drive the right result that it wants. So that was one of the reasons why, for one, I've said no. For another, I've actually said no, not now, but maybe down your 2-year, 5-year plan. What is it? How do you fix that into the plan based on the project's lifespan and based on the marketing campaign at that point in time? How does it build upon what it is? So it's looking at the full end to end. So when people come to me for a budget, it's mostly beyond just the 12 months because we are in a business for continuity. So most times, most people look at the budget just for 12 months, but I tend to see after 12 months, what next? It's looking at that point in time, surviving it, and then moving on. So sometimes no is not because it cannot be done now. No is because it's the right thing to do for the future as well, but also looking at it in a comprehensive manner because in FP&A, we see the strategy, we know the strategy, but when the team comes to you, they come with only what they have to do from their decision and from their department. But I have to look at it across the board and understand how it fits into, in Hitachi, we used to call it the golden thread. How does it fit around the company? How does it make sure that everything fits? So it might be the right time or the right thing at the wrong time, which makes it wrong, or the wrong thing at the right time, which still makes it wrong. It has to be the right time. And that's where us having that discussion with the marketing person, please bring the ideas. We know how we have them, but sometimes it's even asking them, don't you think you need to do this now? because this is the right time to do it. So if we understand the picture, we can actually help that conversation truthfully. So that's where, for me, the business partnering comes into play. We don't just write the numbers just for the sake of it. We are on that same journey with the team to achieve that what you want us to achieve.
That is such an can I tell you, can I be honest? While you were answering, I literally felt goosebumps. I had to mute my mic just to keep from interrupting you, because that's such a powerful response. And one of the things that really stood out to me about that response is the fact that as marketers, which is true, we tend to look at like the 6 to 12 month period and what we need to budget for that period. But you're saying that we need to also consider the 3 to 5 year plan and how all of that will actually come together in within that 3 to 5 year span to actually drive the overall business. And it's very true, because we tend to look on, well, we need this to execute for marketing, but not necessarily the full scope of things. So I think one of the questions I'll definitely want to ask you based on what you just said is, well, you said the right time and the right thing. In terms of what would you define as the right thing? Because I mean, the right time is pretty self-explanatory. But what the criteria that you would probably use to determine which projects you invest in and which ones you invest in, not necessarily which one you don't, but which projects do you choose to invest in?
And even depends on the strategy at that point in time. It depends on where we are in our life cycle. Every company I've worked with have different life cycles, and every company has different pressure points. So it's all about how you fit into the strategy. So, and that's why I said, from an FPM point of view, what we look at is not just adding the numbers up, it's actually making sure that when we sit back to actually challenge the numbers, we challenge it with insight. So what is right 3 years ago or 2 months ago might not be right now, because, for instance, take COVID. Who thought that COVID would happen? So your ability to pivot and change, it's quite important, so that you know. And that's why, back again to the long-term plan, if you've talked about it and you have those things in place, you know which one to pull forward or which one to hold back, but still the strategy is not broken. So for me, it's not just what is right now. It is how best does it fit the answer that we are trying to solve? How best does it fit paying the staff? Especially in COVID time, it was cash. Cash was king. Everybody was running. So what was right then? Was it putting out the marketing idea that you had that made sense before the COVID time? Looking at it differently, when we looked at it, maybe billboards were the best way to market. But after COVID, when we started looking at how digital impact looks at, so it was right at that time. It was the right thing. It was the right time. But when events happen, and that's why we do SWOT analysis, we look at how the context of the environment fits us, and then be willing to replan and readjust. So that's why, once again, we talk about rolling forecasts, talking about those things that help us make sure we pivot right and then do the right thing. The right thing changes according to how the format works as much as possible.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And just going back to mindset, because I read a quote from you somewhere where you said Kaizen is much more than just process improvement. It's a mindset adoption. So in terms of the type of mindset that marketers need to adapt to better align with, like, let's say for example, the CFO or the finance team, to really get that buy-in, what do you think are the mindsets, or what type of mindset do they need to develop to really be able to partner with CFOs to really get that buy-in for the type of marketing programs they want to execute?
I think it's understanding that, I think most times people see finance as a problem, or finance as the last one to go to, or the one that you go to when you have an issue. But your business partner should go with you with that journey. They should know, speak your language, understand it, be able to challenge you, be able to support you, be able to give you the best insight, and be able to fight for the right level of budget or the right actions that you need to drive. So for me, is we are not typical accountants. We are there as part of your journey. I remember sometimes when I started a job, and I used to go and sit with my operational team and say, "Oh, finance is here," and everybody goes quiet. And sometimes it's changing, building that rapport as your finance is somebody that you can go and talk about the ideas, and the person talks back to you in terms of understanding not just your quality, but also being able to hold you accountable to your actions, because at the end of the day, it drives those finance decisions. So taking your business partner along with you on that journey, not just seeing them as someone to sign your approval or someone to get your budget across a 3 month or a 6 month timelines where we say, oh, okay, we need to submit budget. What's that her name again? And then you press the button, and then you have a few challenges and a few squabbles as to why 1.5% is not the right percentage for what you need to do. But it's more than that. If the person goes through that with you throughout the year, when it comes to the budget, it's a discussion. You're both on the same page. You're both challenging yourself. You're both seeing the strategy differently. But if you wait till and put them at arm's length and see us as all part of month-end strategy, you lose that interaction, you lose the insight, and you lose the benefits that we can provide. And we also need to learn from our partners as well.
That's such a powerful response, and I like the fact that you're saying that your finance team or the CFO should be your partner throughout the entire journey, not just when you want the budget approved. And just going back to something that we were talking about earlier about COVID, because one of the things, like, there's a lot of budget being slashed, even though where there's discussion around a looming recession. Some people may agree, some people may disagree that there is a recession, but the truth, the point of it is that there's a lot of marketing budget that's being slashed. And one of the things that I realize is whenever there are downturns, marketing is always the first budget to be flashed. So it's a two-part question. The first part, I'm going to allow you to answer before I ask the second part. But the first part is, why is it that marketing often is the first budget to be cut?
The same question, why shouldn't it be marketing? That's the question, because everybody needs to defend their position. Why shouldn't it be marketing? Every function is important. So why does marketing think they are the first? Is there any study that says they are the first? Do they feel like because their budget has been cut, somebody else's budget isn't being cut? So it all depends on where we are. And when they are being favored at point in time, do they complain when they get a bigger budget? So it spans and crosses. There are times when it favors you, sometimes it doesn't. It's still back to the strategy. Why it's being cut for a reason. Do we know why that reason is? Can we see why that reason is? Because if another business is doing well and is pulling the others up, don't you think it's fair to actually give that budget to the department that might just be the one to carry us through that point in time? So it's a company-wide world strategy. If we are always looking at just ourselves, our region, why is fair and not fair, then we start to fight in silos. And that's where the CFO and the business partners have to come in and say and understand that, yes, everybody's budget is being cut, everybody is being fair to it, and not see it as the fact that it's an entitlement that maybe another project should get it. And you understand why, and see, and then hold the team accountable if they don't even perform, because you sacrifice so that you can get XYZ. So how do we see it? Do we see it as fair and unfair, or it's for a reason and for a journey? So it's changing the perception of why you think your budget is right. Why did you put the budget the way it is? Why didn't you offer to cut your budget? Why should we be the one to tell you? Everybody is in it together. Why didn't you come up with, okay, I thought of this, but this is how I'm going to do it? Why should we be the one to tell you to cut your budget? So turning the tables around, how do you see yourself in your organization? And I think it's a perception point of view. That's what I think.
Yeah. Can I tell you, you have such great responses. Because while you were talking, I was thinking to myself, and I was saying, you know what? Yeah, it is true. For marketers, for the most part, we really don't look at the big picture often. It's often, marketing budget is being cut. It's unfair. The leadership doesn't believe in marketing because they're always cutting our budget. So I guess one of the things, since we're on this, let me segue to it.
Mhm.
there's something that I heard you mention in one of your interviews, where you spoke about. I actually have to read it. The full economic costing model, right?
Mhm.
And to be honest, while I was doing the research, I had no idea what that was. So I went on Google, I did some research, and I found that there's a difference between the accounting cost and the economic cost. And you can correct
Mhm.
me if I'm wrong. So the
Yeah, now you're
accounting
going into accounting. I'm not an accountant. I said that from day one.
no, but probably you can give me some perspective, because I mean, as a marketer, I have no clue about whether finance or accounting. Just to put things into perspective. And it goes back to what you just said, where the accounting costs are things like how much is it to execute this particular marketing campaign, whereas the economic costs are how much, what's the total expenditure to keep the business running. So it's not just marketing, but it's, probably leasing a property or a piece of technology, or how can we automate the business processes throughout the entire business. And how do you actually, or should I say, speak to us as marketers to help us understand why should we be aware of the economic costs and how it would actually play into marketing getting buying from whether CFO or the CEO, to get the type of budget that they need to execute the type of campaigns that they need to.
Um, okay, I'm trying to find the right way to say this. I think for every cost there is somebody gains or somebody else loses, if I'm going to say that. So for every cost that you for every cost or for every decision you make, there is also another decision that could be made, and it's our ability to see that decision that you're being made based on the cost that we are doing is the right decision and gives us the best outcome. So for every cost, we have to look at it across the board, much more than that, because it takes much more than just the cost to run a business. It takes more than just revenue to run a business. It requires both revenue and costs, and it requires us putting it in the right place at the right time to achieve the most impact. So apart from that, I think it's just understanding that costs that you're spending now, it's not available. It can be done simultaneously. £1 here is always going to be £1. You can't get that same £1 else somewhere else because you have spent it. So we have to make sure that we can get the best outcome from that. And it's not just the fact that it has hit your account, you can see it, you think you spent it right. On a global scale, was that the best use of our money? Did we have the right ideas and the right elements for it? Did it drive the best results for us? Not just a result, but the best result.
That's very powerful. And you mentioned about, in terms of the spending the right place at the right time to make the biggest impact. There's probably a lot of planning around budget for 2023 coming up. What do you think? Let's all right, let me make it more specific. So as we mentioned, there's talk of a recession coming up. What do you think marketers listen, I'm not the finance or the accounting person. I'm just going based on what is being said. So whether it's true or not, I'm not here to make that debate. But let's say that's a conversation happening right now. What do you how do you think marketers can make the business case for 2023 budget? Like, what do you think they need to focus on to say, well, Mr. CEO or Miss CEO, Mr. or Mrs. Miss CFO, we believe in terms of the recession, this is what we can contribute that will, help the company make it through this time. And so we need X budget to help us to do that. Like, what's that business case you think they can make to get that sign off?
I would say though it's not business as usual. Every penny counts now. Every penny counts now. So think about it differently, because don't think because it was XYZ the last time and you got through it the last time, because some people tend to just refresh their budget and do a percentage. I think I would suggest go back and really look at it and really ask yourself the questions: what can you do and what can you not do? have a proper work to be able to justify why you're asking the budget for and if it's the right time to do it? Or can you have a 3-year plan and actually say, okay, these are my 3-year plan. How do we fit into that plan? So recession come and go. People go through it. We won't be the first. And strangely, I'm going to say we might not be the last. But it is our ability to find the best part and find what works for just more than your organization. You're a marketer after a while. It's not just about the marketing. You also have a staff. Maybe you have a team. How do you look at all that? So it sometimes it's changing the lines, the perspective and the lenses to actually look at it differently. What are things you take for granted because you've always had it and it has always been there, and then you think you're entitled to it? Everything now needs to be reviewed so that you actually come up with the best possible budget. And we always set you targets. Hey, that's why we're in finance. We'll give you a stretch. We'll give you something to go and get, because at the end of the day, when you achieve it, it's the feeling is good. You get the incentive. But when we are setting those go-gets, I'm sure we hear, oh, you don't understand my business. You don't know how difficult it is. But when you do achieve it, strangely, we don't get the incentives. We are not part of it. But that's why it's your business partner's journey with you to actually get through it. So I would say think differently. Don't assume. Ask all the questions. Scrub all the opportunities you have. Find all your risk mitigation. Because, like you said, if it's going to be a difficult year, don't expect business as usual.
Awesome. And Abby, just in closing, the theme of the podcast is educating marketers on how to prove their value at a C-suite level. So that CEOs, CFOs, to really get buying, not just necessarily from a budget standpoint, but just buying into the value of marketing overall. Based on the conversations that we've been having, any question that I didn't ask, anything that you can leave them with in terms of how can they think about it from a finance perspective to help them get that buy-in? Probably anything that I probably didn't touch on or you didn't touch on that you want to leave them with.
We are all in this business to make it work. So define your value in line with the strategy. How can you make the strategy pop? And if you do that, and I'm sure you guys are marketers, so your slides will be prettier. You have a lot of whistles and stuff blowing on your slides. So that we already bought in, not our boring numbers and slides. But make your value known. We add value because of what we do. We're not there to count the numbers. What is your value? Demonstrate it, shout about it, and then you know how it is. We'll put a goodwill to that. And then once you have goodwill, once you have demonstrated your use, it's easier to ask for the numbers. Most times, most people come first with the numbers. It's the 3 P's or the 4 P's I've said: people, planning, performance, and people, process, planning, and performance. Performance for me is the last. It follows through what those people and planning are. Have that. Come up with your strategy. You are already at the table, so define your value, live by your value, and know why the business is here to exist. Prove your worth. If you decide to be a back office, it's your choice to be chosen as a back office, but you prove your worth. And your budgets and your performance is a different kettle of fish. Now you have to say why you're not giving you the budget, because your value is because you did X, Y, Z, this product grows. Because you did X, Y, Z, this strategy goes. Because we've done X, Y, Z, the company's brand is doing. What is your worth? If you can find that, then come to the C-suite and display that.
Awesome. That was excellent. Wow, I didn't even realize the time ran off so fast. Abby, I just want to thank you so much again for coming on. In case people want to reach out to you, to connect with you, where can they find you? Where do you hang out the most?
LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn. I've been quiet for a while, but LinkedIn is the best way to reach out to me.
Awesome. Abby, thanks again for coming on. Really appreciate your insights and wisdom today.
Thanks for having me.
This has been the Revenue Alignment Podcast. Join us next week where we have more amazing content to help you demonstrate, communicate, and prove your value at the C suite level. I'm Winston, your host, and this is a wrap.